So welcome to the start of a brand new series. This time we're going to take a look at Avalonia UI. This is a modern platform which I actually found years ago when it was in the alpha stage, and it just wasn't ready enough yet to use. Basically, the .NET platform, so .NET Core as we know now, is slowly heading towards complete cross-platform, which includes Linux, Windows, Mac, all the mobile applications, even Raspberry Pi for some instances. But at the moment there's no cross-platform UI. So mostly it started with the need for mobile applications to be cross-platform, so Android and iOS. That naturally grew to obviously Mac and Windows. There's this kind of high need for cross-platform UI. And surprisingly to this day, there still isn't really any good solution that I like and think's bug-free and modern and something I'd like to use. We've all used Xamarin, and I'm sure anyone that's used Xamarin knows the pains of Xamarin. It's far from perfect, has many bugs. To be honest, you spend more time debugging Xamarin than you do building applications. There's things like Flutter, Kotlin, there's many you can try, and they all have the pros and cons. The main thing I like about Avalonia is it's basically a UI, from what I gather, that sits on top of the .NET Core framework. Now, I've literally not used this yet. It's something I want to delve in together with you guys and follow me through this journey where I literally learn it live. So I'll be doing the official videos for Avalonia, and they are sponsoring these videos so you guys get them ad-free. All of my opinions and these videos are made by me. There's no influence from the developers. It's purely that they are going to sponsor these videos to allow you guys to enjoy them ad-free. I want you to learn with me and see how I'm going to pick up this language from nothing to building some real-world applications with it. So I will genuinely just press record, go for it, and we'll follow this Avalonia journey together. My hopes on this are that it's a modern platform with great UI that simply sits on top of the underlying tools that are being actively developed by Microsoft. This will allow us to focus on the UI, which this is WPF based. And for you guys that know anything about me, you know I'm pretty much known for WPF. That's what my YouTube channel has been mostly famous for. So this Avalonia stuff should be a great crossover from WPF into making UIs that are cross-platform. This wants to be a very much interactive course in a sense, and I'll probably do some live videos as well, so that you guys can follow along, ask the questions, help me out when I'm stuck, see how I do things. We'll maybe even talk to the developers of Avalonia in some of the videos to get some feedback as we go. But basically the idea is to learn Avalonia, and instead of it being pre-educated, you're going to see the raw process of me learning Avalonia. So without further ado, the first steps we need to do is jump on the website, read what it's about, and set up the computer ready for development. Again, I haven't even done this on a computer yet, so we're going to see exactly what's involved. If we hit any problems, we'll fix them together. And then by the end of this video, we'll be able to start messing with some example code and seeing things work. So let's just jump straight in. So the starting point is going to be avaloniaui.net, their website. So let's just take a look first at what this is and generally try and figure out what we're going to expect. So we can see on the homepage we've got the Windows, the Mac, Linux, Raspberry Pi, WebAssembly, I presume WA is, iOS and Android. So it's kind of hinting at supporting everything as well as all these visuals. So focus on your application. It's open source, but there's no links. So I'd kind of expect a link here. Visual Studio extension, again, no links. So all this kind of stuff here, I'd probably want to make links because that's the first thing you want to do is kind of click and browse around and, oh, there's an extension. I want to install that clearly, but there's no kind of link to click. If we scroll down a bit further, bring your favorite tools, Visual Studio or JetBrains Rider. Now, funnily enough, I use JetBrains Rider for a few things at the moment, more in the hardware domain, but I do love Visual Studio. So I'm going to opt for Visual Studio. Plus, I think Rider's paid for. Visual Studio is free. So we have a link here to an extension, and we're using 2020 on this Mac. So there you go, newer version. So there's the extension we probably want. So let's keep that window open. A proven path to WPF app modernization. So a hint at the fact that this UI is based entirely on kind of the WPF style of UI, which I think is great because it was the best UI going. Community, it's got a good community growing. and then that's the end of this. So I kind of like to think of where's the starting point of this, where's the download button, get started now. I probably want on this homepage some kind of, begin here, start here, click and get going. A lot of people like the easy introduction to just be able to start doing something. So I guess the other option is either support, which is just paid for support, I guess, not download. Documentation is the next step. So it doesn't really give you a kind of friendly introduction in my eyes on the homepage. I'd want something that just says basically click here to get started. Like this is almost about to start. It looks like this was going to be the nice intro, but all it does is give you a Visual Studio template. So I guess we're going into documentation. So learn how to create .NET GUI applications for Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, and WebAssembly. Yeah, so that's basically the hint of this. This is a UI-specific library that sits on top of .NET, which is great. This is pretty much ideal for what I'd like to see. Supported .NET versions, supported on everything that supports .NET Standard 2.0. Now you'll notice in supported platforms, there's no mention of Android and iOS yet, but there's mentioned here. And I believe they're working on releasing the mobile app support very soon, so they're currently working on that, so we'll get to that when it gets released. Supported development environments, Visual Studio and JetBrains Rider. So we want Visual Studio, so we'll probably click this link in a minute. And then community support, there's GitHub for issues and Telegram, which we'll probably jump onto for going forward. So I also don't like to break out from the kind of linear pattern. So I either want to click Get Started or Install Extension, and I don't know which. So I'm going to open that in a new window, click Get Started, and this Get Started guide pretty much tells us to do a command line .NET New to install the templates, and then create a new application from it. So that's kind of a simple one without any tools, no IDE. And then that other link opened is an IDE support, which if we look, we would get to. In fact, we are already there, are we not? It would be the very next link. Okay, cool. So this link here, install extension, we can ignore because after getting started, it's the very next link. So let's go ahead and try this first. So I'll just make a folder called Avalonia. I'll open up a terminal. We will cd into that. And then following what the guide says, we want to do .NET New, I for installing something, avalonia.templates. Once that's finished, we get this breakdown of templates it's installed with the short names here. So we can now do avalonia.app, avalonia.mvvm, user control window, and you can see the example is telling us to do .NET New avalonia.app, and then the output name of my app. So let's do exactly that. We'll type .NET New avalonia.app with an output of my app. And we should see it appear here, which we do. And now it's saying to do cd my app, which is just telling us to go into this folder. And then .NET Run simply is the .NET Core command line for building and running the project. So let's just do that. And we can see already we have an error that the current SDK does not support targeting .NET 6. So we don't have it installed. So we haven't been told to install it so far. There's nowhere that's actually said install .NET 6. So this probably wants updating to mention your requirements, unless I've overlooked the flow there. Let's just carry on for now. We're going to ignore JetBrains. We're going to go to Visual Studio. And yes, I do want the extension. So let's just go to the link. And for completeness, I'm actually going to install Visual Studio for Mac Preview again, just so you know. So just go to Visual Studio 2020 download by searching in Google. On the pop-up, make sure you select .NET, which is .NET Core. And you'll notice this .NET MA UI, which is the cross-platform UI, which is eventually, I think, what Microsoft will do to provide UI across all platforms. Make sure that's checked. Chucking in WebAssembly build tools as well. And chuck in iOS if you're on a Mac. If you're on Windows, this is exactly the same. Just make sure you select this MAUI and .NET. I'll just go ahead and install these again, just so you can see this kind of setup process. So with that installed again, so it's just a clean install now. The only thing on this computer I've installed in terms of development is literally Visual Studio 2022, and we've just done the Avalonia.net install command for the templates. So this should be the same as effectively a fresh install so far. We've downloaded that extension for Visual Studio. So in Windows, you can just double click it. In Mac, you have to do extensions, and then you install from file. And it appears that Visual Studio for Mac currently doesn't support VSIX files. So I guess that for now is not an option for us on Mac. It's not really a problem. That extension, I'm pretty sure, is just going to do the command line interface. It's likely just going to add a new project template. So instead, we'll just do open, browse to our My App folder, and open this project. Now what we do from here, I'm not sure. Let's just click the build and run out of curiosity. Let's see if this builds and runs first time. So build successful. And there's no run option. So debug application. So it appears there's nothing for us to do by default. We open the files, there's no previews. So at the moment, there's not much anything intuitive to look at. So let's just jump back to the guides. We know we can build it at least. So it mentions that the Avalonia Studio includes the XAML designer. So because we can't currently install the extension on Mac, we can't see the XAML designer. So that's quite a big issue at the moment if we want to do this on Mac. Now the option is we can obviously just install or open Visual Studio in Parallels on Mac to effectively open the Windows version. But it would be nice to have this support, which I'm guessing is coming fairly soon. The other option is JetBrains, but I'd like to stick with Visual Studio. So until Visual Studio on Mac can actually install extensions, or the Avalonia team make an extension that we can select from here and install, then I think we are currently stuck on Mac being able to view these. So if I close down the Mac one and I just open Visual Studio 2022 using Parallels, let's see if we can get the same setup working. We just have to bear in mind if we're using Visual Studio 2022 through Parallels, then this is effectively running in the Windows environment, and we will need to make sure we install whatever we require, such as the .NET frameworks, inside the Windows environment as well. So let's try and open a project or solution, go to the same project and open. Now at the moment, we don't currently have the extension installed. So let's just close this down a minute, open up File Explorer, go to Downloads, and I can just double click the extension and install it. That's that done. Let's reopen Visual Studio. And let's see now if we get the UI preview, which is what we need to do really anything. We double click again. Now the designer is loading. That's a good sign. And there we go. It looks like we have a welcome to Avalonia, which I'm guessing we can type in here and see update, which is cool. We can probably even run the application. I've got no idea what this is going to run on. I presume default it'll run on Windows as a Windows application. And yes, it is. So here is a Windows application, which I presume is running on the multi-platform application UI, which is the Microsoft multi-platform application UI that runs on top of .NET. And this UI is generated by Avalonia that runs natively on MAUI. That's my presumption at the moment, without knowing much more. So this gives us a cool way to design true cross-platform UI. And let's just see if there's IntelliSense. Is there a button? The text. Is the text going to be here? Does that do anything or show up? So it doesn't like a button. I'm just literally typing some random stuff at the moment to see if I can see anything. Text block. Test. Label. Test. So it appears we have a single element in here. So is it similar to WPF? Can you do a stack panel with a label and a button? It appears we can. So it's fairly similar to WPF so far. the build speed, and this is not a greatly powerful Mac. This is a pretty average 5K rated on Mac. It's building pretty quick considering it's in a Parallels virtual machine as well. So you can see we have the UI. So this is up and running. This seems to be fairly stable, fairly quick. I think there's a hot reload as well. So I don't know whether you just click that to enable or what we do. But let's just run that once more. And let's see if hot reload works. Save the file. Hot reload does not appear to work. The designer is paused waiting for build to complete. So this doesn't appear to have hot reload working at the moment, unless I'm doing something wrong. But let's try again. No, so by default, for me at least, in this quick test, we don't seem to get any kind of hot reloading. See, this is what's making me think something's not quite running right. Process not finished initializing and designer paused waiting for build to complete. But I do know you can clearly see there's meant to be hot reload here. So for now, that's not working. We'll figure that one out afterwards. So let's just jump back into the guide and follow it through to see where we go next. I'm not going to bother with ReSharper. Design time properties can be applied to controls to take effect at design time only. So again, similar to WPF. Designer width and height. Data context. So let's just take a quick look at troubleshooting, see if we've had any of these issues. Visual Studio not loading the preview, that's not a problem for us. Preview is empty, that's not a problem for us. JetBrains setup, don't really care about. Programming with Avalonia. So now it gets into actually developing for Avalonia. Some examples, button name, fairly obvious. So XAML's obviously XML-based markup, we know that. And Avalonia is based on that. The MVVM pattern, which I've explained before, which is basically your model, your view, and your view model. Your view being your UI, your model typically being your data, and your view model being a thing that normally links the data and the view together. That's my sort of really brief and simple explanation of what MVVM is. Again, just check out the channel for explanations all over the place of what MVVM is. I'm just looking if there's anything useful in here, bar just the basic steps. So all from there down to assets appears to just be sort of general UI and code development stuff. Developer tools, it has a built-in DevTools window, which enabled by calling attached DevTools method in the window constructor. So let's see if this works, and apparently we just press F12 to debug. So let's just run with F5. And when this opens, press F12, and indeed we do get a pop-up DevTools. That's pretty cool. So we can see main window. Like, oh, this is really cool. You can see everything. I like that. Guessing you can dock this. Visualize margins, padding, visualize data rectangle, show FPS. There's even a console. Where's the console? Ah, at the bottom there with nothing in. So I'm guessing we can write to console as well. We can obviously change these, I presume, on the fly. Yep, we can change the colors. I really like this. Visual tree, events. This is all probably baked in to the support of the MAUI, but even so, this looks really cool. This is super useful for visualization and debugging. So I'm going to close that for now. And then guides, basics. So it seems like the top of this documentation, kind of all of these are, I don't really know, they're not kind of structured in a way that is naturally flowing, but these are probably good to read and go through. Then you get to the API reference, which you can mostly ignore, but then at the bottom you've got guides. Now I'd probably move the guides sort of above data binding. So you do get started, and then you do the guides. So what it looks like now is these guides are, here we go, this is much better. So an introduction to XAML, format of the file, declaring the control. So this is all the info that is missing from, so far we've been told to just build a project, and we have all of this code that's not explained anywhere. So it seems good that this kind of goes to explain it, but the order on the guides here, I'd follow naturally and start going through all this and thinking, where do I start? What else do I do? So go through getting started, and then I'd personally move them guides up before that. So probably getting started as a top level above welcome, then getting started, and then documentation has the rest in there. So there's lots to go over here. There's tutorials, there's deep dives, there's guides, there's a community, there's projects that are using Avalonia. There's even a cross-platform IDE written in C# called Avalon Studio. That's pretty cool. There's a lot built on it so far. Nice. Even a cross-platform file explorer. That's really cool. This is opening up so many possibilities. I'm excited to start using this. So I guess now the question is, now we've got started with this and we've at least just installed it, got it building and running, and we can see, where do we want to take this next? What do we want to build as a true cross-platform application? Now, I've got a gaming company, Retro6. That's where I'm currently away nearly all of my time, hence the Angel 6 channel being fairly stale until now. I've been basically setting up and running a business that's grown rapid. So my preference is maybe some kind of application in the retro gaming scene that might help retro gamers, maybe a custom controller designer where you can design, I don't know, SNES controllers or Game Boy Advance consoles visually, or even just go modern and do sort of an Xbox controller visual app. Or we can go down the route of an actual practical application. I'm really at the minute open to where you want to take this as a community. So definitely give me your feedback on what you'd like me to build using Avalonia. Bear in mind this will run on Windows, Mac and Linux right now, and soon the mobile apps when this is updated. And we have unlimited power by the looks of it for UI. So this wants to really be, I'd say, a heavily UI-driven application. Something that's going to look amazing visually, where we can use animations, we can use graphics, we can do all sorts, and that's going to be the focus. We'll try and cover everything in Avalonia. That's part of this sort of guide, that this is the place to come to learn and understand Avalonia. But it also needs to be fun. It needs to engage you and make you want to build something. So let me know exactly what you want to see. Chuck ideas out there. Join the Angel 6 Discord. And in the next video, I will cover where all the mainstream Avalonia support is, which I'm guessing is Telegram. We'll probably jump on there as well and ask similar questions. And I hope you look forward to this series as much as I do. This is going to be really exciting to build a true cross-platform UI program using my favorite UI tools as well, which is a WPF-based UI. Follow along with this, install Visual Studio, their templates, their extension, and try and build the basic application I have done, and then you'll be ready to follow along with me next on where we take this adventure. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next.